Professor K here. So today we're going to learn about wireframing and how to learn to put together a wireframe in Adobe XD. So a couple of the things that you need to start wireframes. One is a project goal, and two is some idea of what your content types are going to be. We're going to start by having this go with an assignment that we're going to do today. And this assignment is to create a recipe. Now, recipes don't have to be just food. They can be any sort of ordered steps that create something from a group of things. So for example, you might think of a recipe for disaster, which is what I'm going to do today. And the goal of this project is for you to learn some HTML basics while really pushing yourself from a CSS perspective in the next class. So obviously, I'm going to need a couple things to start this out. The first is content and some sort of idea of what my content is. So I'm going to spend a few minutes writing my recipe for disaster. All right, so we're back, and I've written my recipe for disaster. Now, it would have been fine, I think, for the purposes of wireframes, if you didn't have content already built out like this. You could have stopped where I stopped before filling this all out, where you just had like a general idea of what the content should be like. You might want like a few bullet points, you might want a few directions, but basically having an idea of what your content types are is really important at this point. However, I prefer to work with content that's pretty close to real, or at least draft content for wireframes, so I can better understand how it will react when I actually get it into XD. But for now, let's focus on getting this content into Adobe XD. So when you open up XD, the first thing that you're going to see is this area where you design, prototype, and share. Now, I always find it easiest to start with the smallest screen and work my way up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the iPhone XSX and 11 Pro prototype here. I'm just going to click that, and this is now open in my screen. A couple of things to notice about Adobe XD is that the interface is really simplified in comparison to other Adobe programs you might have used. So it's pretty easy to pick up, very straightforward. And what I'm going to do is just show you how I'm going to put in my content as quickly as possible into these wireframes. And I'm just going to stick with one artboard for right now, just to demonstrate how I'm going to get this content in. This is going to be a phone size, so I'm going to start with just one column of content. And again, remember that the point of wireframes is really to show content priority and hierarchy. It's also to show how people should encounter and move through content. So let's start by just opening this up. And I'm just going to grab all my text so it's in an easy place for me to access. Pop over to Adobe XD, use my type tool to put this over here, and then put this to the side. And from here, I'm just going to start drawing out some boxes real quick using my rectangle tool. So up here, I want some sort of title or kind of banner to show my disaster, right? To really talk about this recipe for disaster. When I think about this and I imagine how I want people to encounter this content, I'm thinking that I want it to be really large because it's high priority, and I want it to have some sort of background to set it off a little bit. So I'm just going to quickly go through and take off the border and just have this really nice straightforward image here. And let's see if we can put in recipe for disaster right up here. Let's make this a little bit larger so that it's clear that it is a higher priority than the rest of our content. And we don't have to, I tend to get kind of fussy about alignment, but you don't actually have to worry about that too much in wireframes. That's not really the point. All right, so let's take a look and think about, for content, what might be next. We probably want to grab this paragraph, right? I'm just going to cut and paste this down here, and we're going to set this to 18 point and just regular. We're going to want this a little bit larger at the mobile size. So I should be getting this finicky with this. All right, so you can see that we're starting to run out of room. We actually have a lot more content to get in here and not a lot of room to put it in. So I'm going to zoom out using my Command- key, and then clicking on the title, I am going to use this bottom to expand the artboard. Now notice this little dot, 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 that line is called the fold. And that's going to help you remember where the bottom of the device is, so that as you're creating your wireframe, you can think about how to make sure people understand that there's more content to be seen. All right, so here's my title. I'm going to make that a little bit larger. And then we need some sort of like second level heading. So let's make that 30. Again, you can just be real fast and loose with this. Our next heading level is ingredients. So at this point, I might want to think about, do I want images of my ingredients? How do I want to present my ingredients? How do I want people to encounter them? The simplest way would be to just take these ingredients, and I'm just going to copy and use the Option and drag to just kind of put that down here and then paste. And if we wanted, the easiest way to do this would just be to use like an unordered list or something. So we could do that. We could do like this sort of thing, but I want to give this a little bit more styling. I know that it should be a list of some sort, but I want it to be a little bit more interesting looking. I want people to know what this should look like. So instead of just using a plain old list, I'm going to create some ingredients callouts. And in here, what I'm going to do is put one project. And again, I don't want this necessarily to be much higher in hierarchy than, say, the body text. So I'm going to keep it the same size, but I'm going to leave it bold just to make sure that people really see it. And I'm also going to add a border to this, just so that it's a little easier to see the edges. And you'll see why in a second. All right, so one really neat and handy thing about Adobe XD is that you can quickly repeat items in a grid using what's called the repeat grid. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Here is the repeat grid. We have our item selected, and I've grouped it by doing a Command G. Now we can click repeat grid. And what this is going to do is change this to a green handle. And if you drag this out, you can see that now this is being repeated. You can hover over in between any two repeat grid items, click and drag it down to reduce the size in between each. So I'm going to reduce this down to 1 pixel. And actually, I'm realizing that I don't really like the border on here. So I'm going to unclick it. And notice how it changed all the repeat grid items. That's one really great part about the repeat grid. Now to change just one item, all you have to do is double click and start typing. So a vague idea of what the stakeholders want. Let's see if we can, there's probably a better way to do this with the type size, but that's okay. So let's just grab this, just this one. Oh, it's hard to move just that one, huh? That's okay. I'll figure it out later. It's not too important. So I've got these two. I'm going to double click a group of stakeholders, cut, paste, paste. And I'm using Shift Return to change how that looks. All right, and in my repeat grid, I'm going to, again, it's a little finicky, but click up in there to get the green to show, and then go down one more so I can get my very important person in there. So notice that I am doing a little bit of design work here, but only enough to understand what content I might need to gather. For example, I know that I need to gather an image and then multiple images down here for my title and for ingredients. That's the kind of identification that you want to do at the wireframe stage. Let's go ahead and alt-click ingredients down to create one more section, and let's call this directions. Now directions, I just want to be a little bit more straightforward with. My remaining content, put it down here, drag it until I get, that little thing, and then resize the box so that it's like that. You'll notice that this is overflowing. So again, we're just going to zoom out, select this, and then just give ourselves a little bit more room to work. Now you can see that I haven't saved yet. Now's a good time to save. And it was probably a good time to save earlier. I'm going to save this as my recipe for disaster wireframe. And now I'm just going to take a few minutes to format this content into a list of directions. So I'm going to do that. All right. So we're back, and what I've discovered while taking a look for that is that unfortunately Adobe XD doesn't have a built-in way to put in bulleted lists. So what we're going to do instead is just edit the text to show that. And I want my directions to be numbered, so I'm going to just start by putting in these numbered lists. So here we're going to do 3, and then 4, 5, and then 6. And I'm just going to quickly double check that that's the same set of stuff that we had in here. Yep, 6 items. So perfect. We're in great shape. Now, as I'm thinking about these directions, I'm thinking that it might be really nice to show some in-progress pictures along the way so that whoever's following along with this recipe can see the disaster as it unfolds. So let's do that by shortening this text. And I think I want to add a picture in where the work is doubled. So this is going to create overflow text. It just shows this little red item here. Unfortunately, unlike InDesign, there's not really a way to have the text flow out. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag out in a square here. And again, no border, just fill some sort of generic gray to depict an image. Doesn't have to be fancy. And then I'm going to Option, click, and drag and just remove these first 3 to get to the next set. All right, so after the work is doubled, allow stakeholders to bring in completely unrelated relative for feedback. So I want to show one more picture of what this should look like after this. I think that would be pretty interesting to see. And then down here, I'm going to show the next set of directions. And then I think I'm going to show in my final set one final picture. And again, you're seeing that it's really easy to run out of room on these things, right? So again, just click that title and drag it down. And we had one final little enjoy at the bottom here. So that's it. That's as easy as a wireframe is for mobile. Not too bad, right? Next, we'll look at translating this to a desktop and tablet size. So with that, I'll see you in a moment.